Yeah, we're ready to go. I'm gonna actually pull it
What's
up on
going
another
on,
screen here
guys?
too.
Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream. How's it going today, Terence?
Hey, what's going on?
Good
I'm
to
just
see
now
you.
myself trying to see what's how I can watch at the same time you're on and not play the audio back and not mess everything up and everything the way it goes and not pay attention to the delay because the thing's still
Yeah.
spinning.
Oh yeah, it always messes you, that little 30-second offset.
Yeah, but at least I know
Yeah,
we're still alive. That's the
exactly.
good part.
True that, true that. So thanks for coming on today. I don't know why there's so much drama in the aquarium industry, but there's always a bazillion different posts I've seen about lights and everything else and all the speculation. So I figured let's go straight to the source and dig into a lot of stuff about the sky and kind of get the legit
Yeah.
answers rather than all this back and forth endless speculation, which is kind of funny. So it's good. So thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm glad to do it. And yeah, there's just tons of speculation and it's really funny to me some of the things that people come up with in light of really being able to ask the question, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you could just ask the question, and you could just even call up and try to get a hold of somebody. Especially, some of these people actually have large amounts of followers, and some of them have blogs like Reef Builders and whatnot. And it's just I just pick up the phone because we don't need to turn this all into zebras when it's certainly horses.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of Occam's razor going on here for sure.
No, definitely. Well, appreciate you coming on today. Just so people out there, I did post a bunch of things for who had questions out there and all the random ones. So I did compile a bit of a spreadsheet. So we'll go through some of that and then feel free to answer whatever ones are not NDA-able. So starting out, kind of what was the original inspiration or what brought up the sky or what was the driver for that?
So the story goes like this: is that for the longest time we've been thinking about having a light, right? It goes way back, and many of the LED solutions that were out there, kind of for the most part they weren't completely hitting the way that they should, and that's why even some of the hybrid solutions came around, is to fill in, no pun intended, the void that the many of the LED solutions did not resolve. Certain manufacturers, like Build My LED, headed up by Nick Class, actually solved a number of problems. It's really bizarre that they didn't really get the notoriety they did, and then they kind of left the business. And then the real story is, I don't know, 5 years ago, it might even be now, that Kurt, the founder and president of the company, chief engineer of the company, we were over at Interzoo, and we were walking around Interzoo, and we were looking at different things in this one hall. And you know how you're one of these trade shows, and you could look down the hall a long ways, and we saw this aquarium, and it just had the most beautiful coral. It lit up in the most beautiful way with the colors like. It was not the let's light it up with blue tank, and it wasn't a completely white tank, and you could see oranges and reds and greens and everything in this tank and tons of LPS. And it was literally kind of like the siren of the show. And we went over there and looked at it, and we're just amazed at how much coral was in there. Actually, Ari DeYoung set up the tank for Philips booth and their debut of the Philips Coral Care Light.
Yeah.
We were just astonished by what we saw, and I pulled out my camera, I took a couple of pictures, and I immediately showed them to Kurt, and I said, "Oh my gosh, look at that! There is no weirdness that takes place." Now, mind you, things have gotten slightly better with a lot of LEDs in that world over the last couple of years in terms of taking pictures, but you still you need a filter. Back then, it was way worse. And you just could not take for anything a picture. And I just had these beautiful pictures on my phone. And we looked at the light, and we're like, yeah, the light produces great light, but man, that thing is not practical. It's just not a practical light. It's big, it's clunky, etc. Came back home and figured out that it was actually an adaptation of a bay lighting fixture from Philips that had adapted, and therefore it was not really made for purpose, right? It was not made for reef tanks. And so we started thinking about, well, how can we see how this has been accomplished and improve on that design? even spoke to other people in the industry at that time for some of the top companies, and I had showed them this on my phone after coming back from Interzoo, showed them at MACNA, and they were like, huh, whatever, it means nothing. It's nothing. I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't mean anything. And we just kind of felt that there was something more there to the design and the way that the mixing technology and everything worked. And so we set about deciding to develop the Sky.
Yep.
And you know, I think it's Picasso, right, that talks about stealing and art and all of that stuff. Well, there's certainly components of everything that everybody looks at and goes, well, that's the right direction to go.
Yeah.
And one of the things that most people don't realize either, many people, I should say, maybe not most, is that everybody who ships an LED in this industry has to pay toll to Philips. Unless you're Chinese, import, whatever, you have to pay an amount, and that amount, it's not something secret. It's somewhere between 2% and 4%. Most people in this industry have to pay 4%, believe it or not, of what they take back to Philips. So there is the ability to, you have to, you're just by having a reef tank light, you are licensing that technology from Philips. So we set about making the light and trying to incorporate the things that we knew reef keepers would want to have in a light into our design, and changed a number of things. And pretty much the only thing that is kind of left over from that you can see from the Philips design, and what seems to be confounding to a lot of people, is that acrylic mixing panel.
Yeah. So that actually leads in a couple other questions that were on there. Was, you know, there's like, is it a rebranded Philips? Obviously, it's your own revision of it. Are those parts from Philips? Did you do your own version of it? Or is it kind of like licensing, like the mixing panel and different things? There's a lot of questions around kind of like the manufacturing and the origins of it.
Yeah, there is. And it's again, it's really funny because all somebody to do is call, right? I mean, some of these people we've even invited over here to show them, right? So it's like, no, I mean, all of these components in the Sky are manufactured and designed by us, right? They're not, I think I comically wrote in one of the, in one of the forums, I wrote that they're not found in a trash can behind Philips, or, you know, we didn't get surplus, we didn't get them and carve them up. I mean, again, this is all a bunch of zebras stuff, right? I mean, if you just ask.
I know, it's like, funny watching it all.
It's like, no, go to the simplest answer here is that, yeah, we made our own version of it.
Yeah.
We didn't take something we got and then re-CNC it to make it work and cut it up and everything. It just, why would we do that? So I mean, I actually have one. I have one right here. You can see this is one of the acrylic mixing panels. It's no secret about kind of what it does, and it's interesting because I've heard people say it's all hype, right? That it doesn't really offer anything. What does it really do? Oh no, it does stuff. And does it change the par? Does it change the spread? No, that's not part of what it does. What it does is it mixes the light better. And we're going to show you something here in a little bit today where you can actually see the result of that. But, you know, all of these other little cutouts and things in here, they're for, you know, components to fit through. You know, somebody was speculating even on these tabs on the end, what are they for? Well, again, you look at the design has a certain width, and on this end of the design over here, there's a lot of electronics, right? And if we wanted this panel to center in that bezel, well, what would we do? We would probably put tabs over here so that it could be supported on the bezel of the light so that the whole thing could be centered. Yeah. Rather than have it all off center. It's stuff like that there's no magic here to what it is that we're doing. And then there's the other thing too, which is the very mysterious
the gasket, the U gasket that I've seen 80 posts, 100 posts on.
And again, it's just so funny to read this stuff of all of the things that people come up with. And what really is astounding to me is that, like, I haven't seen this done with many other manufacturers' lights where, you know, they tear them down. So I actually have a tear down here too, you know, so I can go through and instead of speculating again and doing the tear down, you just ask. We're a small industry. But yeah, the gasket is on here for what gaskets do. I mean, what do you usually see gaskets do, Devin?
Generally to seal. Fill in a crack and seal.
Or they seal something out, right? It's not for a spacer, etc. And what you'll see here, again, it's pretty logical when you start to put it together. Is this is we'll talk about this PCB as well in a second. Here's the PCB right, with all the
Yep.
LEDs on it, and it's the right thickness for a reason. And it sits in here on top of, let's see if I can get this in the camera here for you guys. This is actually a reject, that's why it's got a tag on it. And it sits in here on this panel.
Yep.
You see that? And you notice how it sits inside of the seal, okay? And then there's, I don't know, 11 screws or something like that that hold this all together as a sandwich. And you're like, well, why would that matter? Because the water must be coming up from the bottom. It's not sealing anything, right? Well, in fact, no water really comes up from the bottom because there's a diffuser plate on there. And granted, you could, I guess, put a hose on it and get water up in there, but that's
You have to try
not
hard.
what the most logical place is for water to come in. If somebody's looking at this light and looking at all the places water can come in, right? Where do you think that the water would come in through? I think probably
The giant holes.
here, right? These giant holes.
Yep.
So water in an aquarium area usually comes from people's hands and splashing and getting water all over the place. And what that means is that when that water comes in, where does that water go? And I'll show you actually one that's put together here so you can kind of get an idea. And by the way, when it comes to stuff like water intrusion, you're not trying to fix everything. You're trying to like mitigate as much as you possibly can in the places that make the most sense. So here it is when it's all put together. You can see on the edge here, right?
Yep.
And for anybody who's done any kind of construction on your house or anything, once I tell you how this kind of works, it should kind of all make a lot more sense. When water comes in through one of those big holes because your hand had water on it and you adjusted something, it's not going to be like a fire hose. It's going to be some drops of water, maybe a little bit more than that, right? And when it goes in, it's going to get onto this heat sink right here, and then it's going to go somewhere. It's either going to dry up right there, which is where most of it's going to happen, right? Because most of it's not going to be a huge amount of water. But let's say there was a lot more water.
Yeah.
The water is going to run off one of the edges, right? And then it's going to want to go down, right? And when it wants to go down, it's going to have to pass by this edge right here. And water, when it passes, you know, a flat edge like that, it doesn't just drip off generally. It will try to find a place to go. It'll try to loop under because of surface tension.
Yeah.
And so what will happen is that water will try to go in between that sandwich there and get in between the PCB and the acrylic panel, or the PCB and the heatsink, which would be bad. And it'll especially do that because of capillary action. Anybody that's done acrylic gluing knows what capillary action is, and that's what makes it even worse. And so that's the mystery of the gasket. Now, the next mystery is, why is it three sides? Well, if you look here, if the water is coming in here, right, in here, so the water is coming in here, where is the water going to go? It's either going to go this way, this way, this way, or this way. Well, when it comes to this side, there's actually a barrier right here where this board is mounted to. So it can't go anywhere over here. So there's no need for a gasket on that side, and that's why it's three-sided.
Fair enough. Now,
And you couldn't easily have it four-sided because on this side of the board is where all the connections are that go into that board.
Okay.
Now, is it 100%? Probably not. Probably not, because nothing really is, right? And so you try to do the best you can on lots of stuff. There you go. There's your answer.
all right. So, like most electronics, don't dunk it in the tank, and you're probably okay. Now, since we're talking about the gasket, I did see a bazillion posts around like moisture sealing. So, is there any worry about moisture coming in? Because I did read a bunch of stuff saying, you know, like the boards weren't coated, or there's nothing protecting electronics. So, is there any long-term considerations for like the circuit boards and all that stuff with inside of it?
So, I mean, first of all, it is not standard practice, just so you know, to do conformal coating on equipment in the industry. You can call that good or bad or whatever you want to call it. There's a few reasons for that. One is there's a cost associated with doing it. Some could say that's, you know, it's a minimal amount of cost. That's fine. The other reason is especially when you're doing new products, a lot of times there's revisions even post first manufacturing run, and having a conformal coating means it's more difficult to do, you know, rework on those. We are absolutely looking and have been looking at how to put conformal coating into the process of a lot of our products already. So it's not something that we've completely ignored. It will help certain things, but it's also not panacea. Because you have lots of connectors, you have lots of places where you have interconnections with boards and whatnot, and the conformal coating's not going to really help there. it is helpful. I can't
Yeah.
completely, say that it's worthless, but I know that it is definitely something that that isn't as simple as some people make it out to be. So it's definitely there. And then there's other things too. For instance, I know that one of the discussion points, I think it was from Jake on Reef Builders, was talking about actually this button right here, right? Well, ironically enough, this button is in a very similar position to the Hydra 64, 52, whatever button that's on the top of theirs, and it works in a similar fashion. This is actually the little sealed button area.
Yeah.
So if water were to get into that area, there is a board on the underside there. It's not going to get to that board easily because this is sandwiched, right? Between the board and the plastic.
Yeah.
Okay. If you took a fire hose to it, would you get water through it? Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I personally wouldn't even be worried about like splashing water. I mean, realistically, it's up, water drips down. If a fish splashes, okay, hits the bottom, comes down. Your hands are wet. I mean, you shouldn't be touching electronics. Dry them off first. But I guess long term, the only scenario where I could see potential issue if it's like inside of a canopy or somewhere where it's very humid and
that's
the air
exactly
is constantly
right.
circulating through it. That's a scenario what I could see maybe some long-term question.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We got some echo coming in. Did you do something? Something changed. I've got echo coming back in.
Dun. Still echoing?
Yeah. I got echo coming back in. I don't know. He's always playing with stuff.
Constantly tweaking.
Try to muscle through it.
Okay, that's fair.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up, because I want to save a bunch of these questions in between, is we're going to do some PAR testing.
Yep.
One of the interesting things that come up is that how do you test lights? And do we test lights? And why don't we put the data out there? Probably the people said, why did we put the data out there, or why didn't we put it out there? They're probably right. We probably should. So in this kind of live stream, we're going to do some of the stuff live for everybody.
Okay, perfect.
And we're going to, we're going. God, this is killing me. I wanted to ignore it.
Can you hear yourself in your headphones?
Oh yeah. Let's see if this is any better. I'll talk and I won't hear you for a second, and then I'll unmute it. How's that work? So
okay.
So what we're that's even better. I can still hear you.
Excellent.
Oh,
are we waiting?
Okay. Yeah. So so what we're gonna do is test that stuff, and there's a big kind of like how do you test things, and certain people test things differently, and there's validity in all testing. I'll say that to begin with. There's absolutely validity in all testing. However, one of the analogies I'd like to give before we show how we're going to do some testing here is if you're testing cars, you can test a Subaru WRX and let's say a Nissan GTR and test them both in the shop and put them on the rollers and test them for horsepower and torque and everything. And you can come up with the same numbers, or you can compare numbers. But the fact is, all that really matters is what the numbers are on the track, right? It doesn't really matter, kind of on its own, because it matters what, how the rubber gets to the road. So if you took the WRX onto an asphalt track and compared it to a GTR, it's going to be different. And if you take the GTR and stick it out in a rally, it's probably not going to do so great, even though they have the same horsepower or torque, right?
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at here is the difference between testing in air and testing in water. And most people look at that and go, well, of course it's going to be different, but it's probably the same across the board, or there's a linear comparison. And there's not. It's just not.
Yeah. Personally, to me, the only thing I would really care about is testing in water, because, I mean, that's the actual use case, right? So to me, it makes sense to test it how you're going to use it.
Yeah, and some people say, well, that doesn't make sense either, because not everybody's aquarium is the same. So if you test in a 2-foot aquarium, what if I have a 3-foot aquarium? Yeah, and to a large extent, they're right.
Yeah.
Except you can extrapolate still some of the reflection stuff you can get where you can't do that in open air. Sure, if you were to stick these lights over a 6-foot around, kiddie pool, then you've got probably a really good comparison light to light. But that's not how they're used. So when you start talking about how big is the field of origination of the light, is it a point source? Is it a flat light? What is it? Those things all matter. So let's do this, if you don't mind. I'm going to walk over into the lab. I've got Chad over there. Okay. And we're actually going to do some live testing of 3 different lights.
Yep.
Okay. So we can show people some differences. And then on top of that, I want to kind of have a discussion with you about some of the qualitative differences and show you one things with the light. And I think it'll be really cool to show. But we're going to test the Kessel 360X, and we're going to test the Radion XR30 G4 with a diffuser on it, and we're going to test the Sky, all at the exact same height. And we're going to use some really good equipment to do it. And then after we test one of them, we're going to come back here, or I'm going to come back into my office. We'll chat some more about some other stuff, Devin.
Okay.
Chad.
I have a random question that I need to ask. Why am I seeing all these comparisons with the G4 and not a G5? Because I've seen a lot of people reference the G4, but you can't even buy them unless it's used. So that's my question.
Here's part of the reason, right?
Okay.
So a big part of what people do is upgrade from light to light. So I would like to show people who are running existing G4 lights or Kessel lights or what have you. And this, by the way, isn't intended on necessarily showing one light better than another or making for that comparison. I'm mainly doing this because this was one of the comparisons out there that has been made that wasn't by me. So I wanted to at least make that particular comparison.
No.
Okay.
But yeah, that's fair.
As far as why we want to show other lights, it's like this light is meant for the more professional reef keeper, right, or the more advanced reef keeper, right? We know that. Many of those people have already been in the hobby for a while, so they already have something. And this is a way of this is what your upgrade path is. Why would I want to upgrade? How is this going to make my life different? As opposed to, I'm brand new into reef keeping. Which of these top-end lights should I choose?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In my mind, it's more comparable to the G5 because it's like I have G4s on one tank, G on a 5, and the 5s has a lot more spread. So in my mind, it's more a better comparison. But okay, no, fair enough. I was just curious the rationale of the 4 versus the 5.
Yeah, well, that is actually the absolute rationale is that from a marketing perspective, I would rather go after the large group of people who are already our customers with Apex, for instance, who already have a myriad of different lighting solutions that they want to now upgrade to something better, and they want to choose us to do that. So to see what the difference is going to be from what they're running. So let me walk over there.
Okay.
Let's see. Vincent will man the world over here. We got cameras yet?
Yep, you can see it.
Look at that. All right. So what we've got here, I think you guys might have seen. Ooh, look at that. We don't have me in the camera. You just got my legs. Interesting. We don't have an upshot, do we? That's okay. We'll talk from me. Hi. So what we have here is we actually have a grid from a 24 by 24 grid. If you saw in the picture that I had before, we had a 24 by 24 cube that we test in, which is very similar to the one that BRS does. You probably heard that coming into play before. And so what we wanted to do first was test some lights in air, just to show the numbers in air.
Okay.
And then, so the first one up is the Kessel light here. Chad's going to come in here. He's going to pull off numbers from... I
need to make sure the webcam's working.
Oh, okay. Vincent's got a webcam actually on a Lycor. So we have a Lycor 3-input PAR sensor, and this is the same one that VRS uses. And what's up? There, you can get by me. And you can actually pull, Chad, 3 numbers in at a time, right?
For 3 different sensors.
3 different sensors, right? Yes. So you're actually pulling in 3 different sensors at once. And Vincent's trying to get my other camera going here. If we don't, I'll hold it up to the camera. So we're gonna actually show, instead of doing a full grid, we're gonna do 5 points, right? Or we're gonna do 9 points. 9 points?
We can do 9 points, yeah.
Okay, so Chad's gonna put these numbers together. We're gonna do a couple of them, then I'm gonna go back and talk to you some more. Chad's gonna pull the data, and we'll come back and see the next one, okay?
All right, so what light are we starting with here?
So this is the 360X. Is it not?
Okay.
No, it's not in the frame. Look at that.
You're hiding.
Why
Top secret.
Why is it?
It's top secret.
Yeah. Yeah, it's top secret.
And how high is the light mounted from the sensor?
Okay, so it's mounted 24 inches from the sensor. Thank you. That's a good question. I should have mentioned that.
Okay.
So it's exactly 24 inches from the sensor, and when we put it in the tank later, it's going to be the exact same distance as well. 24 inches from the sensor with the water as well.
Not sure if you want to do it too, but someone was asking earlier about the Sky and power readings from 30 inches. If that's something you want to test later or not. But
what's that?
One of the questions in the chat earlier was asking too if there is PAR data from 30 inches for the Sky. I don't know if you have one set up there for one to test.
No, I don't. I don't have it set up for 30 inches.
Okay.
We had a bunch of stuff that was out there on 24, so we just decided to do 24.
Okay.
So Vincent's hooking up the thing. Are you going to have it going, Vincent, or you don't think so?
Try.
And if he doesn't, I'm going to hold it up. And somebody's going to hand me the light core, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Poor Vincent. I ask a lot of Vincent, so you guys know. It's like, okay, I want to do this, and I want to have that on there, and I want to have this on there. And you see it? Is it on the screen?
I appreciate the fanciness levels of all the data and screen captures.
I know. Yeah, look at this.
Alrighty.
See it?
Is it on?
Yep, we can see her.
Can you see the numbers yet?
Yep, 8500.
There you go. Okay, so he's got 85 in the middle there. Vincent's going to log these things for me on the screen there. And 85 in the center. Do a couple on the sides, and then you guys finish them off while I go talk to Devin, okay? So just so you know, if you didn't know, this is also connected into the Apex using IOTA, using the Kessel dongle. So that's a cool new feature that we have with the Apex.
Nice.
So you guys can see him testing this, and while I go talk with you, you can still see him down in the corner doing tests and stuff, so you know it's not any kind of funky magic. I'm going to go to my office. Vincent's going to put it back in there. Yeah, we don't want any, sleight of hand here.
Now, what settings are the light at? Is it on 100%? Is it blue, white?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Good question. So all of these lights, we're doing it all channels 100%.
Okay, perfect.
And so Vincent, you can put me back on the screen while he's doing that. Shrink that one down. So he's going to test those, then we'll come back in. He'll put the, Radeon on there, and he'll put the Sky back on there, and we can continue chatting that out. So what's your next question?
All right, next question.
Grill me, man. Give me a hard one.
I am grilling you. Okay, so back to...
Somebody said that Devin couldn't grill anybody.
I know. They said I'm Canadian too nice. Okay, so question that you echoed out on and didn't answer, but the moisture long-term concerns if it's in a canopy, say, or if it's in a high humid environment. Is there any concerns long-term?
This is true. This is true, I think, for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely, the Coral Care light is going to exceed the capabilities of the Sky in terms of water resistance. It's made as a bay lighting for commercial applications up in the ceiling. It weighs 15 pounds. It does not have the same kind of electronics inside. It's got basically two LED drivers inside, and all of the rest of the electronics are off board, right?
Yeah.
So it is designed in a different way to handle that, and I've actually told a couple of people in the industry who are running things in a really horrible environment that I don't want to run the Sky in that environment.
Yeah.
It's not made for that. And the thing is that's not the normal environment for the average reef keeper either. So, in our opinion, designing for the worst possible case and burdening the cost of that to every single reef keeper is not a great idea. Oh, do you have a question on cost? Maybe that's a really good segue there.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah, so honestly, in an open tank environment, I don't see being an issue. Being in a canopy closed with the humidity circling through it constantly, that's the only time I see it personally being an issue from what I've seen so far.
If you have a horrible canopy, yeah.
People do.
I mean,
they're out there.
if you have a horribly vented canopy where the back is not vented out or you don't have fans in it, and you're basically just letting humidity just build up inside that canopy, and heat, by the way.
Yeah.
Then, you're going to have a problem. You're going to have a problem with a lot of electronics.
Okay. Okay, actually, give me 1 second. Okay, so it has a wireless chip in it. So you can control it. It does not need an Apex. You can do it directly from your phone. Can it wirelessly talk to Apex, or does it still have to be wired for that feature?
At this point, it has to be connected through Aquabus in order to run alongside all of the rest of your Apex gear.
Mm-hmm.
When it runs in Bluetooth mode, it does run inside Apex Fusion app.
Yep.
But it is not yet integrated in that manner.
Okay. No Neptune wireless module yet? Future expansion?
No. I mean, again, the thinking around that, it's something we certainly could do at some point. But the thinking is that if you're an Apex person and you've got the light on your Apex, you have the Aquabus connection. Why would you do it the other way?
I do appreciate that you actually put the Aquabus cable through the power wire and not a separate wire or a dongle or anything janky like that. So I do actually really appreciate that. I thought that was well thought out. It was a nice way to only have one single wire coming out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we have one wire instead of two, like on the on the Philips, for instance, has a control wire and a power wire.
Yeah.
Granted, there is no on the Philips, for instance, there is no. This is why I can't understand why people think it's just a Philips rebadge because it's so entirely different. The Philips does not require a separate power supply because it runs line voltage into the light, which is good and bad. Also because you have line voltage over your tank, so that's why it also has to be sealed like it is. But yeah.
Okay. Yep. No, fair enough. Okay. Another one I've seen lots of posts about is the fans blowing down and questioning that choice. Are you heating up your tank by blowing hot air at your tank?
Yeah, this is an interesting one for me because I don't understand how this one is hard to understand. If you've ever been, you do action sports and stuff, right, Devin? Like water skiing and those kinds of things, wakeboarding or whatever.
Yep. And
you do it out in hard, super hard or super high temperature areas like Arizona, right? When you get out of the water, or let's just say you're going on the boat, you get out of the water, you're on the boat's still going 20 miles an hour. In that 120 hot air, are you getting hotter or are you getting cooler?
Yeah, I mean, the wind does cool you down, right? Because
it's evaporation.
Yeah, because you're evaporating. So I guess this is a bit of a roundabout question, right? So does that mean it's going to make the tank evaporate more, which will keep it cooler? But then are you putting more humidity in the air that's going to be sucked through the light?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, one could go that direction, but I mean, when you talk about the volume that we're talking about, right? How much it would have to evaporate off of the tank? We're talking about, in most cases, a very low amount of air being pushed down. I mean, you have to have this thing running in a super high ambient temperature along with the lights being at 100% for it to even get them anywhere close to running at 100% power. And even then, the amount of air that's pushing down, the amount of evaporation you're going to get is not going to be like, oh man, it's going to raise my humidity to like 90%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, fair enough.
It does cool the tank, by the way. That's not even speculative. We have customers out there, that actually have reported back up to 1.5 degrees of cooling after running the Sky compared to before.
Okay.
Simply because of this action.
I have two 120 mil fans that kick on when my tank gets too hot. So, I mean, that airflow definitely does help cool it. All right, gasket, we talked about that one. A bunch of questions around what are the actual LEDs used, what's the spectrum. I guess there hasn't been much on spectrum yet on it, but what are the different color LED channels, or I guess nanometers, or what's the blending on there?
So I'm going to go back over to the other room right now, and maybe, so we got some other stuff going on, so I'll answer that question in a moment.
Okay.
So now Chad's got now he's got the XR30 Pro on there, and it's over 24 inches over the top of it, 100% all channels. He's doing the same kind of testing. Some of you might have seen Chad actually doing a look on shadow testing with the Kessel. We're going to talk about that qualitative analysis in a little bit at the end, but then we're going to do it again for the Radeon here and show it. Is it on camera right now? Get that first measurement and then bring that coral over here, and we'll show some people some things. There we go. It's all real time here, guys. All real time. This is fun stuff, isn't it, Devin?
It is good times.
Yeah. This is the kind of stuff I thought people want to see this. They're like, we want to see geeky stuff. And I'm like, what better place to do it than ReefDudes?
It's true. We like to be elaborate over here.
And you can ask me the hard questions while we're doing it. Okay, so now a big deal you might have seen in all the marketing stuff, and we hear people talking about, how much marketing there is around the light. I'm sorry, but that's the way you sell products.
That's your job, Terence. You're the marketer.
If the light is, let's say it's close to the same par, as another light, what makes it different, right? Between, let's say, a Kessel A500 or, another light, like, let's say, an Orphec light or whatever. And one of the things, and Ryan showed this actually on his channel, that what you can see here is when you have a light that doesn't blend the light super well, even though it has a diffuser doesn't do everything, okay? So can you see that on the camera down there? Can you see the colors?
Yep.
Can you see on the edges of the shadows the different colors that are coming through?
Yep.
That's actually an effect that happens with when you have multicolored lights that come together to create a homogeneous light, and you shadow out the colors from one or more of them, you then get what is the balance or the remaining. So you start to see, you can see the blues in there and the greens and the yellows and other colors that are coming through and magentas, and you don't have a homogeneous light, right? And this has to do with the blending. And when I talked about, you want it on there again, Vincent? Okay. So when I talked about like what Kurt and I were amazed with, it is this, because you don't see, and people talk about disco ball and whatnot, and it's been improved. You got it? So it's been improved a lot. You're absolutely right, Devin, with the G5.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely improved. In the G5, you will see some separation, but not nearly as much.
Yeah.
And when you put the diffuser in front of the G5, it actually gets rid of the static on the bottom. So I wouldn't run one without the diffuser. But we'll see in a minute, once he mounts the Sky, the differences there, and the differences in the harshness of the shadow and the separation of the colors that you get with certain lights. For instance, on the Kessel, you're not going to get any separation of colors because all of the colors are really close together in one little lens, really tight together.
Yeah.
And so that keeps that separation from happening because they're mixing at the point source. And so when people who don't really understand how the technology works, quite frankly, when they say this is a gimmick, they don't understand how it works. It's basically edge lit lighting. So the LEDs, when they come through that little hole, half of their light is shot sideways into that panel, bounces around with the other colors, and then gets reflected out by the white panel on the back and comes out in a homogeneous color.
Yeah, so it's basically just like an edge lit panel. That's not that you can see them, but basically the lights that are on me right now, it's LEDs around the edge of a frosted chunk of acrylic. So same thing. It's using that light energy to kind of blend them together. Yeah, so that makes perfect sense.
Yep. That's exactly the thing. And the thing is that you don't want only that soft light. You still want some of that directed light, and that's why the holes exist in there as well. And then, of course, if you didn't have, so if you try to look at the shimmer, for instance, on a G5 with a diffuser, it's not that much shimmer at all.
Yeah.
Okay. For some reason, nobody seemed to have an issue with that before, but for some reason, shimmer is a big issue with the Sky.
Depends what camp you're in, right? Some people love it, some like the flat light, right? So
it's like,
that's personal
I
preference.
totally get it, right? But we wanted to add a little back that you don't get in some of those other lights with just a diffuser, and that's why we did the shims thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're letting a little shimmer sneak through, just have a bit in there. Yep. Okay. All right. So this one you didn't answer yet, but the spectrum or what LEDs are in there? What is the mix?
Yes. So there is 8 channels of LED that are kind of put together into 4 controllable channels. Okay, and so there's an amber cyan channel, which is kind of a color accenting channel. There's a white channel. There's a blue and royal blue channel with a lot more royal blue than blue. That's one of the things that makes it way different than the Radions. It's a preference thing for a lot of people. The people that prefer the Sky right now that have taken down some of the Radions didn't like the more blue. They wanted it more royal blue than blue, and have more emphasis in that particular area. That's 1, 2, 3. Oh, and then UV and violet. And that's where one of the other kind of interesting things come up is around UV.
Lots of questions on that one. Okay, so what nanometer, what spectrum of UV is actually in there? And is it actually true UV? And there's another one I asked about. Did you actually check if the UV was passing through the diffuser plate? Because I know that blocks a lot of UV for most people.
Yeah, so first and foremost, our company didn't come up with what LEDs are UV or not UV. UV is technically anything below 400 nanometers, right? It's technically gets into not visible light. And the LEDs that are used in the Sky that are UV LEDs are very similar, not the same manufacturer, I don't believe, as the stuff on the Radion, for instance, which are also labeled as UV from the manufacturer, and they're at 405 nanometers. So you're like, well, those aren't UV LEDs. Because they're at 405 nanometers. But the fact is that their curve is actually, outside of that.
Yeah.
And so it falls into UV. Therefore, those manufacturers call it UV, and so it's called UV. So because there is some UV light in there, even if you had an LED at 390 nanometers, let's say, it would have light that would fall above 400 nanometers in the spectrum, would we then not say that's a one because the peak is there? So I don't really think it's important. I think it's just somebody looking for, it's basically a red herring in my opinion. Look, the corals, some people will tell you that corals do something different with, let's say, 300 nanometer light.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What?
Yeah, I don't know enough to comment on this. I just see lots of posts about the LEDs, about the UV. So personally, I'm not overly worried about it.
Will 405 nanometer LEDs help the look of your corals in the tank? Not how they necessarily color up, because I don't know. Mm-hmm. Will they help the overall appearance in the tank of how your tank looks, right? And the non-technical term that gets made fun of, the pop, right? I think you said that to me the other day.
The color pop? That's why I have people care. Pop. That's why people want royal blue and UV. They want their black light party in their tank, right? That's the popular look for a lot of people.
Exactly. And so if you get, if somebody gets really bent around the fact that another manufacturer, not us, named their LEDs, that are 405 UV, they don't know what to tell you. I mean, Ecotech calls their 415 nanometer LEDs UV.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So
now you said 8 channels on 4 controllable channels. So this was my biggest question: is why only 4 channels? Because control freak Devin wants to pick my own custom blending and can tweak it, right? So what was the decision to do 4 channels rather than say 8 channels?
So it's certainly a design decision in how we wanted to design the electronics. In terms of, there's obviously cost considerations that are in there. That's no surprise, right? Mm-hmm. There's a number of other engineering considerations. And really, what were we trying to go for? Well, we wanted a simple to use light that most people are going to be able to use and be able to adjust it in a way that's going to work for them. And give them some controllability, but not allow them to get into the service menu, let's say. I mean, for me, it's, if you think about a TV, you can have a preset which says movies or sports or whatever you want, and most people use that, right, to change the look of the TV. And then some people go in and they go to the settings and they change the tint or the color or the contrast or the brightness. That's kind of where the Sky sits, in my opinion. Right, is we've got presets that allow you to pick certain looks, and then you can go in and you can adjust things. What we're not giving you is the service menu. So it's a very tiny percentage of people that actually want to use the service menu, because more often than not, when they dig into that, they cause problems anyway. And there isn't really, without the spectrometer and without understanding what you're doing, there's not a gigantic benefit.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, a beginner reefer probably wouldn't care. As more of an advanced reefer, I mean, that's one that, to me, I'm like, I feel robbed. Like, because when I remember way back in the day, I was like looking at radomes and Kessels, and one selling feature for me is like, I can control the channels. Where with the Kessel, it's like whiter or bluer. I felt like robbed. I'm like, where's my control?
Right, and I get that to some extent. People in their Porsches, still, lament not having a clutch. Mm-hmm. There was a time back in the early 20th century when you got a car that you actually controlled the timing advance on the steering wheel. Mm-hmm. There are just things that go away because they're not helpful to people. They're just not. You think, and I get that you think that you want to have that control and have that ability, and you do, because it's been given to you, and I respect that 100%. Mm-hmm. But you're a very small percentage of people, as compared to saying, okay, if we were to change the design and everybody out there, instead of doing it the way we have, which is easy, has to pay $40 more for the light.
Now, question. So just for fun, I threw a poll in the chat, and so far 38 people, and it's almost 50-50 if they would use all controls versus the other one. So if, I know obviously for marketing purposes and sales purposes, it's going for your biggest audience, like for sure. I mean, that's this business, right? If there was like a V2 of the Sky down the road, would there be more channels, or do you think you would stick to the same thing that's currently in it?
If there was 2 of the Sky down the road?
No, like Sky Gen 2.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we'd surely go there. I think what's going to happen, because you're not seeing it yet, is we don't have a huge user base for the customer yet. I can tell you that we have a lot of super geeky people that already have it.
Yeah.
Dwayne Ostrike in Seattle, Richard Ross, other people who generally are super geeky people.
Yep.
And they just go, yeah, it just works.
Yeah.
I like what I've got. And so a lot of times people think that they want to have something, and they absolutely believe that they want to have something, and when they actually try it, they go, yeah, I don't really miss that.
We're at 49 volts. It's like 50-50 basically. So, okay, I was just curious. That
doesn't surprise me in the group of people that we have in these live streams, because they certainly are, more techie, in tune kind of group of people, and they all matter. They absolutely do. But when it comes down to the largest group of people in this industry are the unsung people that are not in these live streams and who just want stuff to work.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay.
So let's go over and look at the shadow real quick. I'm going to go back over there, okay?
All right, sounds good.
Got one ready for me. And I think he's got the sky up here in air, okay? So here he's got the sky over the white thing. We're going to do the same exact test we did before. And we're going to look to see how the shadows look. And we're going to look to see how much color we see. These are all 100%, by the way, just like I said.
Okay, what light do we got right now?
This is the sky.
Sky? Okay.
This is the sky over here. And you can see that there's and actually, when you look at it on the camera, the contrast is way higher than when you look at it here in your eye, too, by the way, on all of these lights, just so you know. But you can see that there's hardly any separation at all to the colors that are in those shadows.
Yeah. No.
So
solid panel.
This is the qualitative difference, right? When you're looking at lights, that you can't just look at what the par number is in a light, right? You're looking at lots of different things that are designed into the light to improve the improve the health for the corals, the experience, how you see the lights. I mean, one of the tests that I don't see other people do many times out there in Vincent, you can put it back on me, is this one that BRS does, where they do multiple points with a spectrum analyzer in the tank with water movement, and you can see whether or not that spectrum bounces all around, right?
Yeah.
Or if it holds solid. And if it holds solid, that means you've got homogeneous light, right? And you're not getting light beams split up all over the place of different colors. And I think that's a really powerful test to be performed.
So that's basically measuring the caustics to a sense. Like, that's the diffuser panel, right? If you're seeing it split up or not.
It's not the diffuser. It's basically the light mixing panel that we have in there. So a diffuser doesn't do that. As you saw with the Radeon, right? It had a diffuser on it.
Yep.
That Radeon has a diffuser on it. It still had a lot of color separation even with a diffuser. So a diffuser doesn't fix all of the color separation problems. It helps a tiny bit, but what happens is this thing that people say is marketing hype. Okay, this is what makes that homogeneous light come together, and you don't get all of that color separation. It gets rid of all the disco ball. It gets rid of all the color separation.
Still there, but it definitely improves it a bunch.
Yeah.
I was watching one video where I could see in the reflection of the water, you could still see the different colors. I mean, there's still some, but that big blending panel definitely gives it more of a blanket to blend them a lot more.
Except for probably a lot of the same colored T5 bulbs over a tank, there isn't anything else that really blends it better. It just doesn't. Call it hype or whatever. I mean, I've seen a lot of lights.
Yeah. Okay, what else we got? Okay, so diffuser, does it work? Obviously, it does work. That's someone was asking. The mixing chamber. Is the mixing chamber something separate, or is it that acrylic panel? Or is it something separate?
It's that acrylic panel.
Okay.
So basically, the way the light works is you've got the board. So we've got basically the LED board right here.
Yep.
You've got this light mixing panel, and if you the picture that you used for your thumbnail.
Yep.
It showed these things kind of blown apart.
Yeah.
And then in front of that, not directly on it, because it wouldn't work, because if you had it directly on it, it'd look like this. You have the diffuser with the shims in it.
Okay. Next question I saw a lot about was questioning the heatsink, and I guess like the panel, like why is it so thin, or questions around that, or not going with the beefier version.
Yeah, this is a really good one, right? So
it is a good one.
This is a really good one because because everybody in the world can speculate, right? Even Ryan at BRS can speculate.
Anyone can.
Anyone can speculate on all this, but what really happens in engineering, and that actually happens here in Morgan Hill, even though people seem to doubt that, is that you study this stuff, right? You put together designs and you study it with technology. So you have thermocouples that you actually put in places after you get your design together to see what happens, right? What happens when one fan goes out? What happens when both fan goes out? What happens, when it's running 100%? What happens when you stick it? We have an aquarium in the back that we enclose in and make it a heat box, basically, right? And we see what can happen with the light, and we use FLIR cameras. Vincent's got some.
Those are fun.
He'll actually throw up on here, I think, a FLIR image that was during some of the R&D that we did. I don't know at what stage. So whatever temperatures are on there, they don't necessarily mean anything. But we did. We actually studied competing products. We actually looked at what the manufacturer specifications are for LEDs. And figured out what we needed to do to make this light cooler and quieter than the other competing lights on the market, and that's pretty much what we did. Vincent, can you throw that FLIR picture up? The FLIRs, the heat maps. So there you can see a couple of them that are taken with a FLIR camera, which are really cool, right? And you can see the one on the right shows like 84 degrees, right? I don't know if that's an average. I think it is. And then the other one shows, or no, it's where that point is. Sorry.
108.
Right that point is. Yeah. So right where that point is, it's 108, right? And so we use this to identify how many screws we need. So this is a perfect example. You're like, wow, why is the panel so thin? Well, first of all, you don't want the panel gigantic and thick because it takes that much longer to transfer it to the heat sink. That's what you want, right? You want it going to the heat sink. It's like, why isn't there any thermal paste? Well, because thermal paste isn't necessary if it's clamped down to the other board, to the heat sink, and you're getting the results you want.
So basically, more screws just sucking it together is why it's not. Okay. Yeah.
And if you look at it, so I mean, I could show you some of the early design concepts that I actually put together. I'm not on the screen right now. You can take that one away, Vincent. You can take those away now and put it back to me. So you can see on the heat sink here, you can see that there's not fins everywhere, right? And part of the reason is because we did, in some of the design revisions, we're trying to get weight down.
Yeah.
So, by the way, the weights that Reef Builders put out there are wrong. This light's actually heavier than the Radiant light, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. And it's heavy.
Well, it's bigger,
it's as heavy as it could be and still be mounted correctly on the Radiant mount, right? That was part of the design criteria, right? Is we wanted to be able to have people who upgraded from the Radiant lights just be able to bolt these up.
Oh, that's another interesting question of going with like.
You don't want to finish the heatsink?
Okay, fine. We'll go. Okay, carry on.
So why is it like thin, and why doesn't it have fins all the way across and everything? And it has to do with the fact that when the fans are spinning, this is a very cool area in here where it's flat. It doesn't need any more, right? It doesn't need to pull it off any faster, the heat.
Yep.
Over here, right, it's further away from the fan. So it needs to be able to pull that heat off faster by using the metal to do it. And you'll notice it's right over those particular LEDs, right? And that's why it looks the way it does. But in the early ones that we had, it had way more fins and way more heat sink material. And guess what? We put it to test. We put it under the FLIR cameras.
Yep.
And was necessary. So why are you going to do it? Why are you going to add cost? Why are you going to add material, weight, all of that stuff?
Okay. All right, next question on the mounting. So what was the choice with using like the Radion mounting? Because that was an interesting one.
Right. So there's a couple things that go into that. First and foremost, it's a marketing decision, right? You got people who have lots of Radion lights out there that are G3s and G4s, et cetera. And if you want to replace an existing product, you want to make it as easy as possible for people. One of the things that was nice about that I recognized about Kessel's approach in their first two revisions, like the 350 and 360, it was really easy for people just to bolt up the next one. And that makes a big difference in people's purchasing decision. At the same time, every company has limited resources to bring products to market. And in order to build a mounting solution that we would think would be as cool and nice as the Radion one, because it is.
Yeah, it is a nice looking mount.
It's a great looking mount. And there's a lot of really shoddy mounts out there, including the AI mount, kind of in the same company. There's a lot of like janky looking light mounts out there, and we wouldn't want to do that. and we want to take the time to put something together. If we're going to do it ourselves, it's going to be as nice as that existing mount. And there's only a certain amount of resources available. So will we have our own mount? Absolutely. Should we have delayed having the light come to market in order that we have the mount? No.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay. Nope, fair enough.
And we have a really nice hanging kit too. I know people go, oh, it's a hanging kit and you got to pay more. Well, it's less expensive than the other guys and it's black, not silver. So that's kind of cool.
Does it come with a hanging kit, or is it all separate mounting? Okay.
It's separate, just like Ecotech. I mean, everything you want to buy, from Ecotech, it's a separate little links. Buy the bar, buy the mounting cable, and buy the, the thing that goes over the top, all of that.
All right.
So I think that lights should have a standard thing, a standard mounting pattern. I think it would be good for the consumer. Sure, it suits us in order to help upgrade the product. There's no secret there, right? But why not help the customer at the same time?
Yeah, no, fair enough. Okay. I already I like their mounts already, so I mean, it looks good, so makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's probably a bugger to try and make a mount anyways.
It is. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of engineering that goes into making a great mount.
Okay, there's been a few people asking, tell us about the rubbery texture on the light and why. Some people are questioning it and say with humidity it will get tacky, or questioning that long term.
Yeah, this is another one. There's just so many people. It's like the arrows are out for Neptune Systems on this stuff. It's like, I don't know if they just had to try to find a bunch of things. Could it just kind of baffled us?
I don't get that one, but do tell.
Because it's not like we just all of a sudden invented the idea of putting this coating into the reef keeping hobby. And it's not like it's only been used by low-end products, because if you probably walk over to your tank right now, you will see one of these, right?
Is that the same coating?
On it?
That's on
It's got
the
a
Sky?
soft touch coating.
Yeah.
It's got a soft touch coating. And then if you happen to be upgrading from, a light like, I don't know, the Gen 2, Gen 3 light like this, guess what it's got on it?
Same thing?
Soft touch coating. Same people that are talking about soft touch coatings, did they talk about it when those lights came out?
No idea. I don't know why people are concerned with the coating. But I've seen it asked enough times, you're getting the question.
Yeah, I got the question, and I like it. I like the feel of it. I like the way it doesn't fingerprint the same way. I think it gives the light a really good look and feel. Time will tell if people like it or they don't like it, or if it has an issue or it doesn't have an issue, and we'll have to stand up to that time.
Yep. No. Okay. Fair enough. Flat black, less reflective, looks clean. Yeah, pretty much. Okay. What else we got? How would the Skies do? Ask Terence, how well will the Skies work on a deeper tank, 30-inch?
So I can tell you unequivocally that they do awesome. And how can I tell you that? Because I have accident frags turning into full colonies in the bottom of my tank. It's 32 inches deep, and they're mounted like about 10 or 11 inches off the water. So and I'm running, I don't know, 200 par, 170 par, whatever, down in the sand bed, even below some shadowing from above. And if you go out and look, I think on Instagram recently for the company, I posted 2 pictures of both a daylight look and a blue look. And if you look down in the bottom, you'll see a bunch of acros that are all growing in the sand bed that about, I think some of them are about a year old, some of them about maybe 6 to 8 months old, and they're 3 to 7 inches across.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
so
what are the dimensions of your tank, and how many Skies do you currently have above it?
It's 96 by 32 by 32,
okay.
And I have 4 Skies over the top.
Okay, excellent. What brand are the LEDs using in the Sky?
There's a number of different ones in there. Cree is one of them. To be honest, I should know the other ones. I don't know them off the top of my head exactly which they are, but I know Crees are, I think, the majority of them that are on there.
Okay. Is there Philips lights on it? LEDs? I know.
Lumen LEDs on there. I can't remember. To be honest, I'm being, deadly honest with you. I don't know. None of them are like cheap garbage Chinese LEDs. I can tell you that.
No, you mentioned earlier that basically everyone has to pay some royalties to Philips. So I assume it's because from using Philip diodes. But
no.
Okay.
No, it's not from that. Basically, early on there was a patent on LED lighting over aquariums. It escapes me which company that was. It was actually bought out by Philips.
That's crazy. You can patent that.
They obtained those patents, and now they're in a giant collection of patents, not just for the aquarium industry, but Like if you want to have can lighting or whatever it is, like they have patents on all kinds of stuff related to that, and they have a royalty program around those all of those patents.
Oh, that's crazy. It still amazes me you can patent something like that. Like, it just seems so common, I guess now. But if you the foresight, 50 years ago.
If you ever want to have some fun, just go start looking at some of the patents for some of the different manufacturers in the industry for different things, and you're like, really? You patented a hinge on a light? Okay.
Yeah, I guess they're just banking on someone's going to make it eventually.
For sure.
Yep.
So Chad's getting it ready over there to do it over, you can see down in the window down there, over water. So he'll start to get those numbers.
Okay,
and
perfect.
then Vincent, sometime he'll pull up that spreadsheet there so you guys can actually see, these real live numbers.
I'm more interested.
We're over a little bit over an hour, but
that's
you're okay
fine.
Because you always go a little bit over anyway. You're not really a hard guy on that, and I got time too since you started at 4 for sure.
Yep, no problem there. Yeah, I'm more interested in the water. To me, like the air ones aren't really the full story because it's not taking reflections of the tank and everything else, right? So I think you're missing a lot of the data just looking at air. Well, you got to use the environment you're using it.
The thing is that if it was a linear function for every light, it wouldn't matter, but it's not, because the geometry and the methodology that the light uses works differently in the reflective zone of a water-filled aquarium.
Yeah. Well, it's all the reflection, which is huge. Like, there's so much bounce back from the edges of your aquarium that significantly up the par. And like even some tanks, you'll see there's almost higher on the sand bed than higher up, just from how the light bounces.
If you look down there in that picture right now, you can see it's got the sky over there, right?
Yep.
So think about it this way. Look at how the far left edge of the sky, right, is clear near the edge over there. And think about all the rays of light that are actually bouncing from high up now, all the way down the tank, right? As opposed to if you had a light like a Kessel light, right? At the bottom, it's probably going to do really, really well, right? In terms of it's going to get a halfway decent spread, but you pull up like 6 or 7 inches, right? It's a cone.
Yeah.
And you're not going to have the same kind of light reflection. So the geometry of the light makes a huge difference in how those reflections actually occur. And you can see that for real in Jake's video that he did just recently on Reef Builders between the AP9X and the Sky, in how the reflections really come to play. And the height over the aquarium is super important for all these lights as well. I mean, right now we're kind of making the light the same on all of them, right? Which is 24 inches off of the sensor, regardless, which ends up in this case the way we have the water set up at I think it's 8 or 9 inches off the water, which is
that's fairly standard.
Where the Radion mount, basically, we set it up so that the water height was where the water height would be if you were running a Radion mount.
Okay.
We actually recommend a little bit higher than that. If it was our own ideal mount, or if you're obviously using one of our cable mounts, we would recommend to go up about 10 inches. Again, it's going to depend on the aquarium and how much spread you want to get and how deep the aquarium is and lots of different factors. But kind of as a rule, we'd want to be a little bit over 9 to 10, somewhere in there.
Okay. Is it 2x2, 18 by 18? What size is the tank in the back?
So the tank that he has there is a 2 foot by 2 foot cube. So it's 2 by 2 by 2, I think, and it's got a black back on it, which you're going to see how that affects the numbers as well.
Yeah, definitely does.
But between all of them, and then the diffuser. That was one question you didn't ask me about too. Was the loose diffuser?
Oh yeah, that was on my list actually, somewhere in the list.
Yeah. So let's see if I've got the. Okay, yeah, I do have. So the question.
Why is the diffuser loose?
Why is this diffuser loose in here? It seems so cheap to have the diffuser loose. And there was actually a lot of stuff we looked at design-wise on this. You're good to go over there?
You weren't just saving 3 cents on screws?
Okay. Yeah. So what? Yeah, exactly. So what happens is that when you have a panel that's that big and you have something that weighs this kind of weight, the natural inclination is to pick it up like this. Okay. And if you do that and you try to bolt that thing in around the edge, you're going to have a reasonable incidence of cracking and other things happening around the edge. In fact, just thermal expansion and whatnot can cause a lot of issues with lights. perfect example here is this Radeon G5, right? So here's where you've got a bezel that is, bolted all together on the Radeon G5, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got major cracking that just is from thermal expansion. And when we actually bought these, right? When we purchased these, they had tiny little hairline cracks in them, and they now have grown to be where they're huge cracks. And so there's a lot of things that happen when you bolt stuff to thin things around heat, and you have people that are picking them up, and you have a lot of this stuff happening. And it was like, okay, we could probably engineer another 1/4 inch bezel all the way around the outside of it, and maybe hold it in there good enough. We actually had some designs where we had cross pieces that went across this, but it would include the light, right, to try to support it some more. Lots of different things that we looked at. And in the end, we said, what difference is it going to make when it's over the tank? It's going to be sitting where it's going to be sitting. It's intentional to be that way. And oh, by the way, the last 2 revisions of the other guy's light did the exact same thing. So,
question: when you're saying because people are picking it up, does loose actually stop anything from it, or is it just so that you're like, oh, I shouldn't pick it up there because it's not solid?
So what loose does is allows you to touch it and it will fall back in the right spot.
Okay.
Okay. If it was not loose and it was pinned down around the edges, and somebody just grabbed that light, let's say with one hand, right, and they had hanging out on the edge of that thing, 3.5 pounds, right?
Yep.
Of moment that's sitting out there, it's now stressing everything that's holding that back, and so you could try to engineer that in to try to account for that. There's obviously cost, and there's size. Maybe the bezel would have to be bigger, etc. And in the end, what were you solving?
Okay.
You're not really solving something because it's really just going to sit there like a lot of other bezels and a lot of other lights.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Including the other lights in the market.
So it's not going to do it. It's not going to crack. It's just going to move.
So why is this not a huge deal? By the way, it's $40 more or whatever to have this on your light. Why is that not a big deal? Okay, but having it on the Sky is. It isn't a big deal.
Okay, this is actually a good question. What features do you lose by running the light standalone versus with the Apex? Or what features do you gain with the Apex? What do you lose? Like, what's the difference?
Good question. So when you run with the Apex, what you gain is the ability to integrate with the rest of your aquarium's functions. So if you, for instance, wanted to create an overlying photography mode where your pumps went off, your other pump went off, your lights went into a certain mode, after a certain amount of time it went back to a certain way, you lose that capability when you run it in Bluetooth mode.
Okay. So basically it's standalone, set it and don't touch it. You can't integrate with Apex like.
Right, you can still play with it and change the modes, right? And like if you want to come up and watch it with your buddies, it's super. I showed it on a few live streams. It's super simple. You just select a new preset, and you can do it on Bluetooth like that all day long.
Yep. One of the comments. You have a G5 in the room and you're testing against the G4 question mark. I had a laugh.
Yeah, I mean, I can go test against the G4 also. Again, the same reason I said before is that we've got other testing out there in the world. Wanted to create some correlated testing so people could see where the difference is, and the G5 numbers are available to anybody as well. The only reason I'm doing this is so you can see the difference between testing in water and testing in air.
Yep.
And to use a light that a lot of people are upgrading from and that has been tested out there in the wild by some people in a comparative way. So let's go take a look. I don't know if they're done over there, if they got the data. Vincent, you got the data you want to throw up on the screen? So Vincent's put this into a spreadsheet.
Okay.
We actually do generally more test points than this when we're doing it internally. We just did these 9 for this particular example to show things, but he'll throw it up on the screen and we'll have a little talk about it, and you can tell me what your thoughts are on it.
Okay.
He's trying to get it together right now.
All right. Our poll is up to 93 votes. 57% would use the extra color channels and program it. 43% would not. That's where we're at.
Yep. And it would be awesome to see after they all have a Sky. So after all of you guys buy the Sky, let's do that survey again.
100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%. 100%.
Maybe you're conditioned into that because everything you've used up until now required you to do that in order to have a good experience with your light.
I wouldn't say that though. I just like the ability to tweak, right? Because you're like, okay, that's a little too blue for me. I want a little lighter. Like I like that little bits of tweaking. You're like, okay, I want to pull out a little more reds or greens. Like I personally like to be able to tweak stuff, but I'm also, the control freak side of things where I'm more into tweaking and all that jazz.
No, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Vincent, you going to bring it up on the screen so we can actually see it? You can get rid of me.
Drag that baby bigger.
You can get rid of me. It's fine. Just make it full screen. I don't need to be there.
Okay. Other side question. Where is it made? Do you make it in-house? Is it outsourced?
Absolutely 100% it's made here. Now, like everything else, there are components that come from all around the world. Okay?
Okay.
So the plastic is not made in the USA, not any different than all the other major manufacturers in the industry. The circuit boards are all assembled here in California by a third party that we use to do that for us. We do not have a line in-house because it doesn't make sense financially to do it, to run our own line. All the assembly, testing, packaging, all of that happens right here in Morgan Hill.
Okay.
100%. And anybody who thinks otherwise, you know what? When you're in town, or if you're in town, come on down here, sign an NDA. I'll show it all to you.
I'll come visit one day.
Yeah, for sure.
Be fun. All right.
All right, Vincent, you going to make it full screen so we can read it?
Make it? Yeah, up this text size a smidge if possible. There you go.
There we go. Okay, so I'm having a hard time reading it.
Putting on my glasses.
Get my screen up here a little bit. So upper left is Ecotech Radeon G5 Pro. You didn't throw the other numbers in there yet, Vincent?
Now, for comparison, we're all lights at 100%?
Yes. All lights, all channels, 100%.
Okay.
So one thing to understand, too, when you're looking at this is that we're not trying to necessarily say which one's better than the other. So people have a good reference that Radeon is 180 watts versus a 200-watt Sky. So there's a 10% difference there, between the two, right? But what you should be looking at in air is you see the amount of drop-off, especially when you look from the middle to the front of the aquarium, and especially in the corners.
It's interesting how much higher the in-water par is, except for directly underneath it. Everything else is higher.
Correct. So first of all, people are like, oh, they say there's no hot spot. It's got a major hot spot. Well, yeah, if you run it in air, it's going to have a hot spot. But if you run it the way you're supposed to run it, right, either with one or multiple Sky across a larger tank, let's say a 4-foot tank, right, this is what you're going to see because this is how it's designed and engineered to run. It was not designed and engineered to run over my floor. Mm-hmm. And so you'll notice that especially what we most care about in the aquarium is the front half of the aquarium, right? Because the back's black anyway, it's gonna drop off because it's black. Right? If it wasn't black, it would be the same. But you look and you can see that there's a pretty good drop off in the corners, that happen between them, and it's a little more even in the sky because of the way that the panel is bigger. The panel is able to get more reflected light, right, at a higher level, right? That's going to make more light bounce around inside the aquarium than a smaller point source of light. And then, as I said, that's not the entire story. You have the qualitative nature of the light that you're looking at. How does it shadow, right? Mm-hmm. So if you look, the Kessel, that's out there has, pretty bad drop off until you put it into the aquarium, and look at how nice and even that is in that 2-foot by 2-foot aquarium.
Yeah, it's definitely much better in the tank.
Yeah, so would you go, wow, look at this, hot spot from a Kessel light? No, you'd look at it and go, look at this evenness from the Kessel light. Now what do I have to look at? I have to look at the qualitative info. Would I want that Kessel light over my tank with some SPS in there? Well, no, I'm going to get that hard shadowing, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's definitely, he's trying to do some standard deviations there so that you guys can see kind of what it was before, what it is after. We don't have to get deep into that detail if he doesn't have it on there. Vincent, can you throw up those shadowing pictures? Sorry, I know you were working on that, but don't worry about this. I think everybody gets the message here. And Vincent's like, are you going to keep telling me to do different things?
Sure is.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, people will take these numbers and they can go run them and they can use them for whatever they wish. But yeah, I mean, it's 400 par down 24 inches from the light, which I think that's pretty darn good.
Yep.
100%.
Now, other question. What look does the light have at 100%? Is it something that you'd run it at, or what are you more likely to run it at?
Yes, now that's a really good question. So we spent a lot of time curating the LEDs in a way, and this is one of the things that we actually have a lot of incredible feedback at trade shows of people walking by and their jaws dropping, okay? Because at 100%, it's mixed to what most reefers will want to have. And that was actually one of the comments that Jake, give it to Jake, he actually said, he's like, yeah, this is the look that modern reefers want to have. It's, it's got white, it's got that touch of blue, and, it looks, so we maximize basically the power and the look together. So, I mean, that's for people to decide for themselves. I mean, I can't tell people what they like, but I can tell you that here we have numerous reef keepers in the front office here. All of them were intimately involved in helping decide what that mix of LEDs was going to be.
Yeah.
So there you can see right there, he's giving you all three, right? So again, it's not about just the quantitative numbers that we just saw on a chart. It's what's the qualitative feel of that light and what's it going to do to the look and the corals and how the corals respond in your tank, how much light is hitting how much of the coral tissue, right? To help it grow faster. And you can see on the left, you've got the Kessel light. Clearly, you have the harsh shadows. No surprise there, right? Especially if you do studio lighting like you or I do, right? You know you're going to have a light that's spotlight. It's going to have harsh shadowing. Then you can see the middle one is the XR30, right? G4, right? And you can see it's still got some harsh shadowing and it's got some color separation. And then on the right, you see there's the Sky. And I'm sure I'll get lots of comments of people say, "Oh, you held this one higher than that one, and that one was higher than that." Look, it's not. This
and
is
different
not
angles.
Scientific part of it. Yeah, and different angles, and you're trying to make it be this or that. But you know what? Any number of people can go try this themselves, and I can guarantee you'll have the same, because it's an experiment at a children's museum, right? Where they have a red, green, and blue light shining on a wall, and they're all white, right? And then you turn one of them off, and everybody's shadow starts, as the kids stand in front of it, turn different colors.
Yep.
It's an absolute known lighting phenomenon.
Yep.
So, Vincent, you can come back to me if you want.
Caustics at its finest.
Put it back on me. He's in the next room, that's why I'm yelling. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, so what other questions do we have? Do I have anything on my sheet that you might have missed? You got airflow, you got UV, you got soft touch, you got the gasket, PCB.
Yeah, what else we got here?
Heatsink, acrylic light mixing panel, diffuser, power supply. Any power supply questions?
None yet, but use a Meanwell power supply, which is a solid option.
Also, we have one other feature on the power supply too that you don't see very commonly, and I don't know if it's used in the industry or not, but it has
an
a
Alcobus port. That's specific to
that. Yes, and so when you connect these together, a lot of lights, when you connect them together, one of the lights that I had the most trouble with at my house before was one that had two barrel connectors that came together, and they didn't have a way to lock them together. And they would always come undone. And you're always, you're pulling wires behind your tank and everything and whatnot. So what we did was it actually has a locking connector. So when you push it together, it actually comes together and snaps in, okay?
Yep.
So it can't pull apart.
Okay.
And then you pull the sleeve back here.
Is that for daisy chaining lights, or is that just
No,
the power connector for it? What does that look like?
This is the power connector. So when, again, back behind your tank, when you're pulling on stuff, you don't want your lighting connectors to come undone. And we got like a 12 or 14 foot connector on it. So this is actually different. This is actually the exact power supply pretty much that Ecotech uses. I think it's the exact one.
Yeah.
The only difference is the wiring is different, and we have this connector on here, and they do not.
Okay.
For whatever reason. It's a cool connector because it doesn't come apart.
There you go.
See?
It's okay. Excellent. Okay, Aaron, the power supply gets very hot from reports I've heard. Is that a concern?
No, I mean, so here's the deal, right? It's no different than obviously the Ecotech one, and every one of these that you use on your tank, I see them used incorrectly all the time. Okay, so a power supply like this is a 200 watt power supply. I might get this number wrong, but I'll use it as an example. Let's say that this power supply, just for the sake of this discussion, is 95% efficient, right?
Yep.
So that means it's 5% inefficient, which means it's going to emit 10 watts of heat just coming out of here, right? That's just going to suck. It's going to basically, you're going to be emitting all of this heat in your cabinet, and there is no cooling fins really other than what's on here.
Yep.
So if you take these and slam them all together, like I see people do, they're going to prematurely fail.
Yep.
If you stick them behind a panel, right, and even separate, and you close in that whole panel,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to prematurely fail.
Yeah.
It's not a bad power supply. It's a bad person it's a bad design of how somebody's putting these together. They will get hot. You use a Mac, right?
It died, so now just Windows now.
Not anymore? Well,
Used to.
even some of the newer notebook computers that have the very small power supplies, how hot do those suckers get?
Oh yeah,
They get
toasty
blazing hot.
Yep.
I can't even touch when my Mac is low on power and I plug it in. If my leg hits it, it like burns me.
I don't know about the new ones, but I know the old MacBooks are like small furnaces on your lap. Those things got toasty.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because they're trying to get it in a small amount of space, right?
Okay. I can't find the question in my massive spreadsheet, but there was one earlier about the profiles for setting it up. And there was apparently one in a promo or one of the demo videos, and it wasn't available with it. Is that coming? Or let's talk about the profiles or what's in there. I'm trying to find the actual question.
Yeah, so there's two, there's a couple of different ways to configure the Sky, or a few different, the way we prefer people to do it is through the Apex Fusion app and the new interface that we have there, which makes it super simple to do, right? You pick one of those profiles, and at some point, those are going to be customizable profiles too. And maybe Devin, you want to have one that's like Devin's tank? I'll do that for you.
What are we doing?
I'll have it on there. Yeah, you can curate it. Right, you can curate your own look for the Sky, and I'll have it in there. It'll be Devin's tank,
Yep.
But yeah, so you have those presets. Then you also have a simple setup, right, for setting up your schedule, and then you also have the ability to go into Pro mode. And when you go into Pro mode, you're able to have more points and also have more custom settings, across the day. Now, when you go into the Apex. In the Apex dashboard kind of way of doing it, the way that you would have done a Radeon, etc., it is kind of the more old school way, where you do the points on the graph the same way in the Apex, and then you pick things off of the list there with the different settings, 10K, whatever kind of presets there are. Now, what's really cool is we do have these things called schemes, so you can save something the way that it looks, and then try things out, and then go back to your old settings. And then you have it so you can share those with other people. So you can have the way your setup is. So you can go out right now in the Sky and see how my lights are set up, how my schedule works, how all the settings are, and you can just download those and use those right now.
Okay, nice. So basically tasks for light profiles.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Now I've seen about 800 questions asking about the pricing on it. So let's go to pricing. People are getting mad. I keep seeing pricing. Okay. So what's the price? Where are we at?
So the price is $869.95.
Okay.
The first thing that I'll say is that it's not priced any differently than any other similarly powered, similar American-made, American company, type light in the industry. Okay. As far as is LED lighting expensive, it depends on who you're talking to and what they're comparing it to, and what their goals really are, and what the channel is that the light is being sold through. So if you take a look at lighting in general, I think I just saw the they put up on BRS the 2013 front page of their website, and the Ecotech Radeon at that time was $899.95.
Yeah.
So the price has actually gone down for the Radeon.
What is it now?
The price,
like $799?
well, it's that same. It's like $913, I think, right now. But if you adjust for inflation, it's basically the same, if not cheaper now than it was back then, right? Adjusted for inflation.
Yeah.
So lighting is going to cost you that much. And one of the things that people, I don't know if it's like a secret, but maybe it isn't, and I'll let the secret out. Okay, you heard it here. We don't get all of that money. The resellers of the products get a huge chunk of the money. In reality, in dollars and cents, they get the biggest chunk of the money, because they generally get, depending on the product, 30 to 45% of the retail price of the product. So the moment you start to lambast a manufacturer for charging too much for a light, you should at the same time go and lambast maybe the store or whomever that they're making too much money off of you. I don't think you should. But you can't have one without the other, because they offer a service, they offer what they do to be able to make a profit.
Well,
but you have to include that.
It's probably MSRP, so I'm pretty sure they have to sell it what they got to sell it at.
Yeah, well, there's that, right? But in a $900 light, right? If you've got a right off the top chop off $320, right? For a store, you're now down to $580, right? And you have LEDs, just the LEDs alone on these boards, especially today, right? With what's going on in the industry, you know, they're 50, 80 cents, $1.20, $2.30, $4.20, depending on the LEDs, right? Like UV LEDs are even a lot more. So you start to add it all up, and then now you take into account research and development, you take into account having to feed people in California, you take into account keeping the lights on, and then you take into account that the people who actually have a business don't do it for the fun of it, they do it so that they can take home a little profit for the risk that they take. You get to where you get. Now, if you go and take a light off of Alibaba and you bring it over here, or some company here locally in the United States brings over an Alibaba light and slaps their name on it, and they don't pay the 4% to Philips, and they don't pay a local fish store because they sell it direct, or whatever else, well, then you're kind of comparing apples and oranges.
Well,
so
the other thing to consider too, which I guess we'll get to in a second, but is like the warranty on it too, right? Because I know this is one thing I always say when people talk about, the cheap China lights. If it dies, it's basically throwaway. There's no one going to support our warranty yet. So part of the cost
I'll
is
be the
going
devil's
to warranty.
advocate for them, right? It's an argument that's not worth even having, in my opinion, because the argument that will come back on that is, well, I'll buy 3 then.
Well, that's just a waste of the environment and resources, and I don't know.
It's a whole bunch of reasons fine. I'm just telling you that will be the argument that would come back. It's like, well, I'll buy 3 then. That's fine. It's not an argument to have. We do have support staff here in Morgan Hill, in Florida, all across the country, right? Helping support our products. We have a warranty for our products. We have, we have to do research and development. We have engineers on staff. We don't charge for Apex Fusion, despite enormous amounts of infrastructure costs. All of these things, come into play. So if any honest person were to take a look at the entire scope of things, they would understand that, and it wouldn't be people are trying to steal my money.
Yeah, I personally never get into price because I think it's relative what people are willing to pay and what the value is. That's a personal choice.
Yeah.
But
price elasticity.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so now on that, part of what you're paying for is support and warranty, right? That's part of it. Now, what is the warranty on the Sky?
1 year.
1 year? Okay. Now, this question I have seen come up quite a bit because with all the moisture concerns, is it covered if there's any moisture type issues on it?
I can tell you this, we're going to stand behind the product.
Okay.
If there's a design issue in the product where ambient moisture has caused a problem in the product and it's used in not an abusive way, we're going to take care of the product, period.
Okay.
There's no question in my mind. If somebody dunks the thing into their aquarium,
that's another story.
That's another story. If somebody is running it in an outdoor greenhouse at 98% humidity with whatever the dew point is, and it's just getting like that, those are the fringe cases. But we're gonna take care of customers.
No, that's awesome.
We're absolutely gonna take care of customers.
All right. So now this is a little bit of kind of Sky, but so Sky can be standalone, right? It has a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth module, I guess, inside of it. Is that a sign that we're going to see more future Neptune products that have that capability in it?
I would say, yeah. Absolutely. The industry of connected devices, so to speak, is that, right? There are a lot of changes that are going on in that world right now. Where will it always be all Bluetooth? Will it be Bluetooth and Wi-Fi? There's a consortium with Microsoft, Google, Zigbee, who else? Apple, et cetera, that is putting together, a whole new kind of approach to home automation and the IoT stuff. So maybe time down the road, we'll do some of those things that are a little bit different further down the road. But I'd say, yeah, I mean, we're in this to make products that people want to have. Certain products people want to have standalone products, and they make sense to have standalone products.
Yep.
And in making a standalone product, the best way to have the most robust, greatest UI is to use a mobile device to do it.
Yep.
And you have to communicate to it.
Okay, now I know this one's coming, so I'm gonna ask it first. Would there be a future version of the Trident that could be standalone, since there's now this capability in other Neptune products?
So to me, the value of the Trident is not just in the measurement. It's absolutely in its integration into the Apex ecosystem.
Yep.
If there was a strong enough demand around that, I'd say absolutely it's possible that could happen. The idea of having every one of them be standalone and then connect it up at the time that we did it, we didn't want to burden the cost anymore.
Yeah.
It didn't seem to make a lot of sense to burden everybody with the cost. I think I've mentioned it before that to you that if I was where is it? I think I have one here somewhere. Yeah, it's a perfect example, I think. So if I was, doing one of these, right? If you've ever seen one of these on your tank, there's probably 2 of them or 3 of them right next to each other, right?
Yep.
Every single one of them is burdened with the cost of a radio of a different type, depending on which model that you have. If they're sitting right next to each other, why wouldn't I have one of them have the radio and the other 2 not, and have a lower price on the other 2?
I don't know.
Why would I burden everybody with the higher cost?
That one's a double-edged sword, because if they don't, they're upside to the tanks, then you got to run a wire to connect them, right? Or if you sell one, a used one, throw on a different tank, then it works. So that one's a double-edged sword.
I'm sure you can take certain.
I'm
sure you can find certain edge cases.
Yep.
But I can assure you that a $13 or $14 wireless solution in that is going to amount to at least $25 to $35 to the consumer. So the consumer having the choice is a good idea. And so with the Trident and whatnot, burdening another $35 into the Trident probably was not something we wanted to do, when the vast majority of people are going to want to plug it into the Apex anyway.
I could see a lot of people that don't have a controller being more swayed to buy an auto tester and then eventually wanting to automate their dosing and then moving to it. Like I could see that be another way of people actually starting to come into it.
All of these are valid things that you're saying.
Yep.
Everything isn't about, with any of these things, it's not about whether or not there's somebody that could do it. You're basically balancing out everything that you have to do as a company, and where are you going to get the most efficient use of all of your resources and get the most beneficial products out to the customers and the most amount of customers, right?
Yep.
That could use it. It's not an infinite supply of resources, and so you have to apply them, accordingly.
Now, on that note, I know basically all electronics and microchip shortage is a huge pain in the butt trying to get anything right now. Is that affecting the Sky in manufacturing right now?
Every product in every manufacturer pretty much in the industry has, not every product, but every manufacturer in the industry has a product for sure that is being affected. I'm not going to get into which of our products may or may not be affected by this, but it's affecting every manufacturer at some point. And it's affected us differently, a year ago than it is affecting us today. But it's no surprise. It's affecting every industry, and in our industry, it's affecting every manufacturer pretty much in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, no, I know just all the IT stuff I deal with, like half the stuff I try and buy is like back ordered and you're waiting for everything now. So now on that note, I know it's likely hampering production of them. Is that limiting sales or having any effect on like how many are coming out right now? And there's a bunch of questions around availability and if you can buy them and where and all that stuff. So kind of all ties together.
Perfect question. So we had an initial launch with a large group of them, and a second group launch that happened in the last couple of weeks out to local fish stores, so that we could prioritize local fish stores over online. Crazy, huh?
Crazy.
We just merged with an online company. You would think would want to take all of them, and instead we shipped them all to local fish stores.
Sharing is caring. No, that's cool.
You can go right now to a local fish store. All around the country, the major local fish stores around the country that are Neptune dealers, our platinum and above dealers, pretty much all of our diamond dealers all have them in stock, or they'll have them in stock in the next day or two.
Nice.
And they are available. There are a couple of there are a couple of orders that are coming into BRS over the next week or two. One that should be up on the site in the next day or two. Actually, I'll talk to them tomorrow to make sure it gets up on the site. And likewise, there's some at saltwateraquarium.com. Shocker,
Yep.
we're still shipping them to saltwateraquarium.com, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, it's we're definitely shipping them out all over, and we'll be continuing to ship them out ongoing as long as we don't have a parts supply issue. And right now, we're good.
Nice. Okay. I'm just scrolling through my sheet trying to find stuff that I missed.
Okay.
Are the fans speed controlled or are they just on? Like, will they ramp up and down?
Absolutely, they're speed controlled. And one of the questions come up: why two fans? Why would you have two fans? Why aren't they custom fans? Right? We saw these cool custom fans that were on other lights. Well, first of all, we tried all of the kind of custom fans, which aren't really custom. They're just a kind of a slightly modified version of the ones on your graphic card there that you have. And we found these fans to be the quietest ones for us to use. We use two because doing all of our studies with heat and sound is we wanted to have the quietest light with the best kind of temperature control. So having two allowed us to do that. It also allowed us to have redundancy. So, you know, let's say you were to have a problem with your Sky, right?
Yep.
And one of the fans goes out on it. And you call us up under warranty and we're like, yeah, your light can still work. We'll be sending you out a replacement. And you're not going to be out of light until that shows up in a day or two.
Okay. So if one fan dies, the other one will speed up and it can kind of still cool the light
enough. And it
enough.
may dim the light too, depending on if you've got it set for 100% and it's in a super hot environment, right? As soon as the fan gets to max speed, if it can't keep the LEDs cool, it'll start dimming down the LEDs.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll thermal throttle itself.
Yep.
Okay. No, that's always good to hear. I don't understand the point of that question, Derek, but why are your fans black and not gray? Who cares? But anyways. Yep. Yeah, no fans equals zero noise for sure. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a trade-off though. I mean, do you want a 14-pound light? Is that going to be feasible for most people over their aquarium?
Yeah, the coral carries a buggered amount. It's a heavy one. So I understand that too.
Yeah, I love the coral care. I ran them for a long time because they're a great light. But you know, it's just not feasible to have 14-pound lights over most people's aquariums. For a myriad of reasons.
Okay, weight-wise, what did you say it was earlier? I know you said it was incorrectly
stated. It's just over 4 pounds.
Okay.
I can look it up exactly for you if you want. Wait. I think it's 4.2 or something like that. There we go. So we did it with the with and without the cord. So like we held the cord up, up so that you can kind of see what the actual weight would be like over your tank. Without the cord, it's 4.22 pounds. With the cord, like it would be if you set the whole thing on the scale, it's 4.85 pounds.
Okay.
The Radeon G5 with the cord is 3.62 pounds, and without the cord, it's 3.29 pounds. The G4 is 3.2 and 3.42. So,
all right.
There you go.
For
all the data. You guys all want the data.
I'm Googling it too.
The data.
It says the XR30 is 4.5 pounds, so it's a little bit lighter, which is actually a bit surprising because it's bigger.
I don't know what they're including in that, but we just weighed one here. We weighed one here.
All right.
We didn't read the website. We actually weighed one.
All right. That's what Google. I don't even know where it pulled it from. Probably Ecotech.
Yeah.
Okay.
That might be the whole box weight, like when you buy it in the box or something.
Yep. Okay. The other one that we kind of touched on, but I don't think we got an answer, was on spectrum. Is there anything on spectrum graphs or with the light yet?
I mean, there's a rough spectrum graph out on our website with all LEDs at 100%. That's out there.
Yep.
There's a lot of talk one way or the other about it. I think that most people, they have their preferences. In one direction or another. I think BRS has come out with they like to see this ATI Blue Plus. We've done some changes to make it close to that, but also make it. Again, we really tweaked it internally to, yes, be good on a BRS test, which you've heard Ryan even say, but at the same time, look really good for us here, right? To tune it the best we could at all 100% to make it look the best. And we've been running it over tanks for well over a year, growing mad corals, okay?
Yeah.
So this is not like speculation it's going to grow corals awesome. It grows corals awesome because a light is not a light is not a light. As many times I hear people say that, it's untrue. When you have a light that bounces light off and is wider and bigger and brings light to other angles of the coral, the coral is absorbing more light. The zooxanthellae are absorbing more light. All of that comes into play. And so, you know, in my tank, I can have corals that are over the top, shading corals below, and they're growing amazing down below, right? And they're growing incredibly fast. I mean, I intentionally, 8 and 9 months ago or whatever, I stripped out like the whole left side of my tank. I like cut it like all the way back. And so that way I'm going to show people also that, hey, here's what it is. Because when I originally put them over, it had quite some decent sized colonies on it. So I stripped them all the way down. And now we'll show you exactly how it's growing since then. It's growing like a weed.
Nice. Awesome. Why not come with a way to easily daisy chain lights? I'm going to guess so you don't have line voltage over your tank, but...
Yeah, so, I mean, you have to have a power supply, right?
Yeah,
so if you want to add the weight of the power supply up onto the light and the bulkiness of that up on top of the light, you still have to have a power supply, and there's no way to really do that because you need that 200 watts. And then, you know, I guess you could find a way to put one of those 3-way connectors from Home Depot up there or something, but...
Yeah, the power supplies, you have the line voltage, all that up there. So I understand why that's not there.
They got moonlights, too.
Ho, ho, ho.
Yes, they've got dedicated moonlights, two-color moonlights.
Can that be programmed via the standalone app, or is it only unlocked through the Apex?
Absolutely controlled by the standalone app. You can have what we call like a nightlight mode. You can have the mode like that they go all night. I can't remember exactly all of them. And we're working on some more advanced lunar kind of aspects to do the coral spawning work.
Yeah, nice.
Right now.
Excellent. That's cool. I like that more people doing all the spawning. It's kind of another cool aspect of the hobby that's coming up.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think I hit most of the questions. I'm sure I missed some in my spreadsheet.
Was it a grilling?
I don't know. Did you feel grilled?
No, because I already know all of the questions anyway, and I don't have anything to worry about because it's an awesome light. We put a ton of work into it. A lot of people put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and long nights and mornings and everything into this. You know, I'll just tell you, sometimes people don't understand that they're people, you know, over here. Right?
Real people making things? What?
Yeah, well, there's people, and that people have lives, and they care about what they do and everything. And so, believe it or not, it is a little bit hurtful, right? When you see some of the things that are said or written out there, because you know what you've done, you know what you've put the time into, you know what you've tried to commit to try to do something, you know, really great. And so there's a lot of people like, God, man, we're just trying to like make great lights for people's coral tanks and whatnot, and give them what they want.
Yeah. I mean, so my perspective, I haven't actually seen one in person, so I'm 100% just going off all the questions that I'm seeing everyone ask. Pandemic, I haven't been to shows, so I'm kind of coming in blind here. But
so let's get you one and put it over one of your tanks.
I would need many, though.
Huh?
I said I would need many, though.
Okay, which one? Which tank?
I don't know. We'll see. If I set up a small tank or something else, maybe I'll try one out in the
Don't you have some other tank? You have a tank other than your main one, right?
Yeah, I got 2 right now. But
okay,
if I set up with something else, we'll see in the future. The question is, do I really want to maintain more tanks?
What? So you got Radeon XR15s over the one. We'll leave those alone. What's over the other one?
Both. I got my old G4s on one and G5s on the other.
Oh, just replace the G4s with the, with the Sky.
But the tank looks so good. It works so well. Okay, so here's a question for you.
Sure.
So I know all these comparisons. One are against the G4s, which to me, I still think it should be the G5s because that's kind of current what's for sale. But I understand you're going for the upgrade path, right?
Sure.
Now, I've always I know you're also comparing ones to 30. Personally, I've never owned a 30. I've always went for 15s because I like the idea that you can space them out and you get way better coverage and spread from all that intersection and bouncing everywhere. So how would you say it compares to, I'm going to say 2XR15s versus a Sky, right? Because it's roughly the same price zone and it's a bit more spread out with the light. Like, how would you say it compares?
I can tell you right now that Sky will have better coverage on the light simply because of the overall area of the light source. It's going to be better. It's not lost also that once you have more than one light, you have more than one power supply, you have more than one set of mounting that you need to do. It's not without its other drawbacks by having multiple lights over something. The G5, we have tested the G5 against the light. The Sky performs slightly better than the G5. It's not dramatically better, right? But it is slightly better, and in some configurations, it can be quite a bit better in some of the more advanced configurations with deeper tanks or wider tanks, etc. We have a number of customers who have already changed out XR30 G5s, not because it's just they want the most popular thing, because they liked the way that the tank looked better under the Sky.
Yeah.
That's a personal preference with how the light is distributed. There is less shadowing still with the Sky over the G5. That's just part of physics, right? It's just the way it kind of works. It's got a bigger panel.
I'm still debating this in my head because you have one physical big panel versus two smaller but spread out, so it'd be more. I don't know. I'm still physically trying to work out the light rays in my head.
How wide is the XR15 panel?
I have no idea.
It's like 5.5 inches wide, right?
Yeah.
So the Sky panel is twice as wide. So it does make a difference in the light origination. And yeah, everybody can go out and say it's marketing hype on the webpage, and okay, that's fine. I'll take all the arrows. But it really does come down to the size of the light origination. Think of the soft boxes that you use. If you use a 1 foot soft box or you use a 2x2 soft box, which one is going to have a softer, more covered look that's going to have less shadowing?
Yeah, I mean the bigger the light source for sure.
It's just physics, and outside of that, there's like I said, the other reasons. You want to have multiple lights, you want to, et cetera, et cetera. So,
okay, here's another question for the chat. Will they make smaller versions for nano tanks? Will it be baby skies?
You know what? I think I'd sit here and lie to you if I didn't say that we wouldn't have on a roadmap, more versions of the Sky. I mean, that's pretty straightforward and logical. When and how and what they would do and what they'd look like. Well, I'm not going to allude to that, but it's kind of logical that there would be more lighting in the roadmap.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, most companies every few years they have some revision of it, so it'll be. I'm curious to see what happens in a couple of years of what gets tweaked and changed and for future Sky. But this one's still very young to the market, so time will tell.
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, guys. If I missed any good
questions, long stream, man. That's good though.
It is good.
You got it all covered.
I know.
This is going to be a popular one, I think.
I think so.
You might have to put an index on there for all of these topics, so people can click through.
All right. That's a lot of work. If anyone wants to make one and send it over, I'll include it.
It is a ton of work. I know.
Okay.
I thought about doing it myself.
I'm throwing this out there because the chat were up to 125 votes. Would you use all channels if you could? 60% yes, 40% no. So I'm questioning if Sky version 2 is going to have more channels. Anyways, we'll see. We'll see what the people say long term.
Yeah. Redo the poll and ask if it was $50 more, would they?
I would spend $50 more.
Well, that's fine, but it changes it certainly changes the dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And ultimately, as I said, how you do things now and why you do them now, and how you do them as everybody, Porsche, it was stick shift, right? That's what you had, right?
Yeah.
It's awesome. You drive a stick shift, right? Or BMW, whatever it is. And all of a sudden they started making awesome transmissions where you didn't need to do that. You didn't need to shift it like that. In fact, you were slower if you did that.
I know. It's funny, but true. It's more fun, though, driving a standard. But yeah.
I love driving standards too, but the thing is that nobody wanted to buy the standards, right? Now they're really hot now again, right? They're starting to heat up again, all the standards. But the people did not want to buy them once they had a really good PDK or something like that, right?
Yeah.
It was just not what they wanted to do.
Nope, definitely. Well, I appreciate you coming on today and going for the grilling of questions and all the random stuff I've seen posted. I honestly don't understand all the drama. It kind of makes me laugh, but I don't know. I just saw so much back and forth. I'm like, that's it. We're going to the source.
Well, all of and any of those people that are out there that are probably watching this or will watch it back later, you certainly can send an email in to sales@neptunesystems.com in general.
Yep.
You know, you can say nasty things about me if you want, or you can even email me directly. It's Terence@neptunesystems.com. I'll take your email. It's fine. You know, ask me the question. Call me up. I'll
Perfect.
send you my number, and you can call me up, and I'll answer the question for you.
Okay, excellent. Oh, Woody's Reef, make a Sky Pro. That's for the extra channels, for the people that want to spend the extra $50. Reef Automation, thank you for the super chat. Buy a Sky. Thanks, Devin and Terrence.
So, is there any good positivity out there in the chat? People like the stream?
Oh yeah, definitely. People are loving it. They're lots of thanks to both of us for coming on and doing this and going through everything. Derek, lots of other people who loves their skies too, spreading the good word. Mark's loving his Sky. He says they're not too hot to touch. It's fine. He went and checked.
Mark Levinson?
Yeah, he went and checked during the stream.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good. Rob, buy yourself a beer after having watching this. Thanks so much, guys. Okay,
Yeah.
Quick shout out. John, Rob, Mike, Battle OCR, Tracy, Reef Automation. Thank you guys for the super chat. Terrence, thank you for coming on today.
Absolutely, man. Glad to do it. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, and glad to get the information out to all of the reef keepers out there about the Sky. And yeah, next trade show, get out there.
Awesome.
Get out there. See us.
It's coming. Awesome. Thanks
right,
again,
man.
guys. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. Terrence, thank you. And we'll see you guys on next week.